Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Justin Heller, a CDO Magazine editorial board member. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Nadiem von Heydebrand, CEO and co-founder of Mindfuel. Nadiem, before we dive into the topic itself, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in the data and AI space? And I really hope I said your name correctly.
It was perfect. Hi, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks for having me. Yeah, where should I start? My name is Nadeem. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Mindfuel. I spent my entire career in the field of data and AI. So studied computer science back in the days, joined in a consultancy space in the beginning of my career, and I had the chance to work with the greatest enterprise companies in the world, I would say. And I learned a lot along this journey. I worked as a data scientist hands-on for the first couple of years and then shifted my career towards, you would call this data and AI strategy. So my job was to help big organizations to establish their data and AI chapter, center of competence, center of excellence team, making sure that they are building up the capability to deliver on data and AI solutions. So this was my job. And then in a certain moment in time, in a special moment in my career, I was facing a challenge that one of my clients actually asked me about the topic around value. Or specifically, he said, Nadeem, now we're doing a lot of stuff in data and AI with our team here at our company. We built up a massive team, a big organization with 200 people. How much money do they actually contribute to the business, and how does the return on investment look like? And yeah, I was puzzled a bit, or my answer at least was quite fluffy. And this was the initiation to think about the problem Mindful is solving today. We will deep dive into this along the way anyway, but Mindful is a data and AI impact management platform. And in my role as a CEO, I'm responsible for our go-to-market, talking to our strategic customers, working with major enterprises again, and shaping our product closer to the market, our SaaS product, in solving the problem of demonstrating business value. And this is my passion.
I love that. It's something that I'm very passionate about as well. We've spoken about this a little bit in the past. I do think that at the end of the day, anything that we're delivering has to drive value back to the organization. And I think certainly, and you've said it very well, there's struggle with that today, particularly with the rate and pace of change, especially with AI. So let me ask you this. So a lot of data and AI teams are producing just an enormous amount of output, right? Between dashboards, models, reports, or the capabilities themselves that they're putting in place to help support the business and certainly achieve goals around AI. But all these things are not necessarily moving the business. What's the real difference between the team that's generating all this output, right, or delivering all these capabilities versus a team that's delivering outcomes and value?
Yeah, this is a great question, Justin. And I think you're already specifying a very important point, which is the differentiation between output and outcome. So um, I think a lot of data teams delivering output, and it's also much easier to deliver output. The question is, how do we define the difference? And simply said, outcome is defined as the output which is creating added value for its recipient. It's very simple. It's a very simple principle coming from product management in its origin. And we're heavily or very strictly differentiating between output and outcome. So it's super important that data and AI teams making sure that they truly driving added value for their line of business they're delivering the solution to. And how do you do this? You have to better understand what the business problem is. So we will come to that point in a certain moment in time where we will discuss with our lines of business, how can we deliver outcome to you instead of output? And they will answer, can you listen? Can we talk about my problems? And so the whole topic around problems, output, and outcome is very closely connected to bring this in line. You need a problem, you have to develop output, and you have to make sure that this output is received as added value to solve the problem. And this is how we define outcome today. And a lot of data and AI teams are struggling with that. They are hesitant to clarify what the difference between output and outcome is, or differently said, they are focusing a lot on output.
I totally agree. One of the things that I used to tell my teams, and I think this is becoming very important given a lot of the AI use cases around productivity, that I would rather the outcomes be effective than efficient.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
agree.
this is very interesting. I'm curious, how do you define value in the context of data and AI, and how do you actually qualify and capture it? Because certainly,
Mhm.
like, effectiveness can still be vague.
Successful data and AI teams organize themselves around outcomes. So what they actually do is they they go to the business and they try to understand the business context. So it's not only about a simple problem to solve. It's not about, I have a problem, can you build me a solution for that? But what they do is they try to capture and better understand the context of the business in which the problem sits. So we're extracting from this business context the business problem, because in this business problem, there sits the value. And why do I know this? Because you can build based on this business problem. You can set up assumptions to solve the business problem, and based on these assumptions, you can build a business case or a value report or a lean business case. But you can start quantifying the problem based on the assumptions with the help of the metrics we are talking about or the KPIs which we want to drive. So to simplify, one thing is we have a business context, there is a business problem. In this problem lies assumptions. Based on these assumptions, we can write a business case. And then we develop the solution based on that problem. And with the help of the business case, we can also capture the value later on, because we have an assumption of the value, or we can call it value potential, value assumption whatsoever. And this is something we can track in a later stage. And this is how we capture the value then. But we always need this business case upfront.
I also see that a lot of data teams, as well as companies, operate like with a project mindset, right? A project has a specific start and end with a goal. You build it, you ship it, you move on. And sometimes what ends up happening is that people are looking around as to, well, now who's going to own it now that it's implemented, right? And so I always think that the goal is to shift from project to more process and program. I think you make the case for a product mindset as well. What's the practical difference, right, between project and product, or product, project and process? And
Mm.
why does it matter for ROI?
I think project and product are two fundamental different things. So, and a lot of organizations deliver projects. They define they define internal initiatives, then they're prioritizing initiatives, and then they deliver on the initiatives, and that's it. I think what we need to understand by its foundations is a project is defined by a start, end date, a scope, time, and budget. So it always has a fixed start and a fixed end date. And when a project is delivered, it's delivered. You are done with it. A product is never finished. So a
Yeah.
product is something where you have a continuous delivery behind it. It has a life cycle, and therefore you are continuously creating value based on problems you're solving. And this is how successful also data and AI teams, when we think about data products or AI products they're building, when they establish this kind of product mindset, they do understand that after they have delivered maybe a milestone or a first version of the product on MVP or whatever you want to call it, this is where it actually continues, and where, or you could say where the start actually works, where the work actually starts. Sorry. So this is where a product is, in terms of a project, something which is never finished and which is continuously monitored to deliver the value based on the problems we're solving.
Right.
And when it comes then to the ROI of it, because this is where we are actually struggling with, how does it impact the ROI? The use cases which we're trying to solve, in which the business problems are living, they are also in a part of life cycle. So we have a continuous perspective on the values, and we have a continuous perspective of the costs of a product. And the ROI for me is defined value divided by costs. So this is the return on investment. So in a product mindset, we do this in a continuous life cycle instead of a project where we just have a start and an end date where the ROI is then defined at the end of the project. We're saying how much cost have we delivered, is the project goal achieved, and can we define a return on the investment in the project?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That makes sense. I always think that with a product, there's this notion of incremental and continuous return on the investment because you're continually generating value or revenue off of the product. A project may deliver its return just upon project completion and just once. And so it has to do with
absolutely.
how enduring that value is. So I really love your perspective, and I love what you were saying
And
around.
and maybe just let me just add one thing, because I mean I've been in discussions a lot around the topic around project and product.
Mhm.
It's not saying project is bad, product is good. It's not saying that there's one is better than the other. It's just like for some things, it makes more sense to have a project set up. And for other things, it makes more sense to have a product set up or a product mindset and a project mindset. And so I don't know if you have a migration from A to B. This is for me this is a project. It has a start date, has an end date. We have a clear project goal. We want to deliver on that as efficient as possible. And then we can justify at the end of the day what the benefits are. Here we need a project mindset. When we talk about a product, like the whole AI world we're operating at the moment, where we're trying to build something which lives in an ecosystem with a life cycle, this is where we need a product mindset. And this is where a lot of IT and especially data and AI teams are struggling to differentiate here, saying, is this a project or is this a product we're building or delivering on at the moment?
True.
And this is where we need to specify.
Pivot to that a little bit. So there's the enormous demand for data and AI right now. And a lot of it's driven by FOMO, fear of missing out. This AI frenzy where everyone wants to be building something. They want to prove that something works. They have a pilot, they have a great idea. Most organizations still only see a fraction of the demand that actually exists. There's much more out there than what they're really able to focus on and capitalize upon. And
Mhm.
that much of what does come in isn't really a use case, right? Maybe it is a product, maybe it's a process, maybe it's something else. What's going wrong in how demand reaches data teams? And how does that
Mhm.
distort what they end up prioritizing?
Yeah. So it's super good. And I think for to get to that answer here or to clarify that answer, we need to introduce the term use case. And we haven't talked about that yet. We've just been talking about business context and business problem and so on and so forth. But everyone in data and AI organizations is talking about use cases. And the question is, what is a use case? And I've seen a lot of organizations where I asked them, hey, can I see your use cases? And they gave me a list of solutions. They gave me what they've built as their use cases. And so what I've seen in my career and also what we do at Mindfuel today and what we recommend is let's clarify that the use case holds these kind of business contexts and business problems. And we're qualifying in a use case what we call the problem space and the solution space. And a lot of data and AI organizations are struggling or hesitating or not strong enough in collaborating with the business on the problem space. This is what we discussed earlier on to identify value, to clarify outcomes instead of output, and all that stuff. So most of what arrives now as a demand at data teams are typically no use cases. They are any type of demand or requests, or I need a dashboard, or I need access. So what we have to clarify in our first step, especially when in this situation now with AI, and everyone wants to do AI, right? So
Yeah.
everyone is in this kind of FOMO of, oh God, we have to do AI for the sake of AI now. But the first question is, what problem do we solve? What are the use cases? And we need to identify and we have to find those use cases with the highest value potential to clarify on how we want to prioritize all our resources, people, money, stakeholder alignment, commitment, all that stuff. So the whole topic around demand management towards data and AI teams resonates or results in, have we identified the right use cases, and can we find the right use cases, and do we know what a use case actually is? Now, this last step of your question is, how do they know that they have the best use cases collected? In big organizations, data and AI teams only see a fraction of the real demand because things are happening all. I'm not submitting every business problem to the data and AI team and say, can you help me? So we have to make sure that we find a channel, or that we find a way, whatever channel we want to use, that demands with real business problems are reaching the data team to identify the high priority, top priority, high value use cases, whatever you want to call them. And when we look onto the AI industry or into organizations who are running AI at the moment, this is where they're struggling the most. Identifying the high top value use cases, and we help them, and we also need to educate the business here. It's not only on the data and AI teams, but it's a joint endeavor to submit demands with high priority business problems to give the data and AI team the chance to work on good solutions with the help of AI.
Curious as to what you've seen. When data and AI leaders go to the board or to other executives to justify their investments, where do you most often see them get it wrong? And what does getting it right look like in practice?
I mean, I've seen so many things, and everyone does the best he or she can. But what I'm observing, or what I've seen in my career, is they coming into the boardrooms and saying, this is the list of activities we've done. These are the jobs we have delivered on. These are the epics we have supported, or these are the so-called use cases we have delivered, but then we're only talking about solutions. None of them is, so again, coming back, they're reporting on output. None of them is trying, and I'm really saying trying because it's not easy. It is challenging to report on the outcome, on the value they have delivered, they have contributed to. Which business problem have I solved, and how much value do I have unlocked? And successful data and AI leaders have identified a best practice methodology and found software to orchestrate this in a systematic way. So also what we're doing at Mindfuel, we don't reinvent the wheel. What we're doing is we're professionalizing this approach to help data and AI leaders to simplify their day going into a boardroom and saying, okay, these are my use cases. We have clear business values behind it. This is the value potential. These are the solutions we have built. And this is the value we're unlocking. And this is also the value I'm claiming for myself now. This is what I can attribute to my team and to my work, saying, hey, this is the value story I've generated for this line of business because we have developed solution A, B, C, D. And I think data leaders who are thinking that way, doing a lot of things right in practice and becoming more successful and taking ownership and value contribution and accountability for business success.
Accountability piece is really critical. I think inherently it's easier for someone to commit to how they're going to do something than to commit to the results of what they're doing. Because there's an element of having to take a little bit of risk to say, this is the benefit that we're going to get from doing the what and the why, and too many people focus on the how, or what you call output. And I completely agree. So where do you see this discipline of managing data and AI impact going in the next 2 or 3 years? And what separates the organizations that will get there from those that won't?
I mean, in the question, we have a very good word, which is called discipline. And it's a discipline, which it's actually not complicated, but you have to stick to it. And what we will see in the next 2 or 3 years, especially with the AI trend now, we have the definition of ROI, right? The ROI is defined value divided by costs. I think in this formula, the costs are pretty obvious. I think we've been able to track the costs, we were able to measure the costs, especially now with AI. The cost discussion is massive. Now, the question is, how do I keep track and overview of the value in this formula? So how do I make sure that we continuously also demonstrate, qualify, and then quantify the value side of this equation or of this formula? And data teams and AI teams who are starting now with the topic around value management today will be successful in 2 or 3 years from now in having a clear justification on the cost side. And because they will be able to report on the ROI. How do you get there? Takes me all the way back to the beginning of our discussion. You have to start with the use cases. You need to start formulating good use cases with the problem space where we have the business context, with the business problem to qualify the assumptions, to write a business case. So everything we had from the beginning, this is the way you have to start today to be able to manage the costs of AI in 24 months from now, to be able to demonstrate the return on investment based on the value management you're taking place. And successful teams are already starting today. They have started, they took off, and we already see great results from them who are argumenting in board meetings around the ROI and not just the budgets they have burned, to be honest.
Because then it sounds like you're advocating that the discipline needed is not necessarily around the project execution, but it's around the operating model of managing what you produce as a product from a value management perspective, which is a continuous evolution of monitoring and reporting and making sure that the investments are still yielding the value and the return for why they were made in the first place.
And Justin, I postulate, let's say it that way. I postulate not to reinvent the wheel, but just to professionalize what we already did in the past. Every data and AI team is writing down use cases today. We just have to change the way how we do it. And this is the disciplinary part. It's not about the technology. The problem we're addressing at the moment is not a technology problem, it's the management and orchestration. As we said, it's a problem in the operating model. And if you get this, it's just a kniff, it's just a knot which we have to turn around. We just have to start with the business problem properly. Then the topic around value is manageable.
Yeah,
it is manageable.
I completely agree. Nadiem, if a chief data officer or a chief AI officer was listening to this conversation and wants to better demonstrate business impact and business value, what is the first thing they should change?
Start with use cases. I think it's really, and there is no wrong moment in time, or there's no wrong maturity level to start with writing down proper use cases. People always ask me, yeah, Nadiem, but our maturity is not so high. When should we start working with this approach? And I'm always saying, today. Look at your intake, look at your demands, and find out if you're solving business problems with them. And if not, go back to your business stakeholders and say, hey, you know what? We've introduced a new process and we want to better understand your business context. We want to also document that, and we want to better understand the business problem because we want to steer value in the future. So it is as simple as that, and not taking requests for solutions or any other type as so don't accept these type of requests in the future. This would be number one. Then number two, if you do so, if you start with the use cases, the rest follows just in an, let's say, just organically, because on the business problem, you will be able to write a business case, even if it's just a lean business case, an easy estimation, but this business case helps you to prioritize by value. And this is super crucial because you want to allocate resources to use cases later on, or to delivery work. And by this, you have to prioritize the best and high value use cases. So if I have a value potential, 5 use cases, every use case has a dollar number. I can prioritize them. I can rank them by the highest dollar number, and I can allocate the resources to the right things. And from that moment in time, when you steer by value and not just by effort, you automatically already starting by managing around value and not by output. So you
Yeah.
already systematically start managing by outcome, even if you are not capable of yet tracking the value. Value tracking is then this is then the discipline which comes after. But this is how I would start. Use case, business case, prioritization by value, orchestration by value, managing by value, and then delivering outcome. And this takes me to the resume of all of my talks lately in this last half year when I've been on stage. No use case, no value. If you want to come to the value topic, if you want to steer by value, you have to start with the use cases, with the business use cases specifically.
Great. Well, Nadiem, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Justin, for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Love the conversation as well. For more interviews and insights, please visit cdomagazine.tech.